What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants are having OTAs, and there's been a lot of really great quotes. Finally, we're getting a little bit of exciting New York Giants content, some quotes from the coaches, from the players, and getting a first look at what this team is going to look like with Daniel Jones throwing passes in 7-on-7s to Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers catching a deep touchdown pass from Drew Lock during practice today, and of course, a little bit of a sneak peek at the configuration of the offensive line. Some surprising moves here. You've got Jermaine Illuminor, who, of course, we've talked about a lot throughout the offseason, even before he was on the New York Giants, how excited we would be to have him on the team. Well, now he's here. He's got that right guard, right tackle flexibility, and apparently now some left guard flexibility as well. He's been lining up there throughout the first couple of practices, and John Runyon, the left guard that the Giants signed this offseason, lining up at right guard. So what's going on here? How do we feel about it? Of course, we're going to go ahead and discuss that and just talk about this offensive line. Is this a versatility thing? Is this maybe a potential mistake in some of our opinions? I don't know, but we'll go ahead and unpack it, break it down. Only so much that you could take away from the OTAs, but these little sneak peeks will inform what the Giants plan on doing during training camp, and that's where things really get ironed out for the upcoming regular season, which is just going to be here sooner rather than later. It's going to fly by this summer. It always does. And of course, throughout the summer, though, right here on Fireside Giants, we're hitting you with all of the updates on the New York Giants and their practices like we're doing today. But before we dive into all of this, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is your reaction to John Runyon lining up at right guard with Jermaine Illuminor at left guard during the early practices of OTAs?
I'm doing pretty good, and the way I can say it, the easiest way to say it, versatility. The Giants want to be prepared for any possible combination of offensive line, kind of sequence there. Last year, we saw how difficult it was when a couple guys got injured, a couple guys went down. We did not feel comfortable moving this guy to this spot, or that guy to that spot, and the only concern that I do have is they refuse, and this is the one thing that's getting me pissed off. John Runyon playing right guard, totally fine with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine with him cross-training versatile, getting used to playing against it alongside this guy or that guy. Illuminor, has played guard in the past, getting some reps alongside Andrew Thomas and John Michael Schmitz at left guard. Like, I'm okay with that. But why is it that the Giants refuse to let Evan Neal cross-train at guard? You know what I mean? They don't want to do it. No matter how many times he gets injured, no matter how many bad reps we see, they refuse to have this guy practice at guard. I don't get it. And this seems to me like the same Eric Flowers BS that we saw in the past when the Giants forced him to play tackle, did not want him to play guard, and then he goes over to what was the Dolphins and then the Commanders, and he plays guard there, and he has a fine couple of years, and he was, average to slightly above average, and it's like, okay, well, why didn't the Giants try that? It feels like the same history all over again with Evan Neal. If he doesn't take a big step forward, like, we're staring at the same situation where he has no experience at guard. You can't move him there, so what do you do with him? You know what I mean? They're moving John Runyon away from where he should be playing at left guard. They're moving Illuminor at left guard. Why isn't Evan Neal getting reps at guard? Again, long offseason, he could very much get them, and I think he probably will, because they'll want Illuminor practicing at right tackle, and that's where his best position is. I do think that at right tackle, Illuminor can probably start and be in a slightly above average player, and that's a huge improvement compared to what we've had in the past. Right now, I can tell you this, Anthony. I have about 10% faith in Evan Neal. About 10%. And the reason is, he has given me no reasons to have any more than that. You know what I mean? Last year, I would have said I was 75%, hopeful. Obviously, last year was even worse than the year before that. The injuries, the inconsistencies. He gave up more pressures in just about half the amount of snaps that Illuminor gave up, last year at right tackle. So why should we have faith in Evan Neal? I just haven't seen anything that suggests he's going to turn things around yet. Now, that doesn't mean he can't, and I hope to God he does, and I'm rooting for him to turn around, because we desperately need to get any positive value from him as a former 8th overall pick. If he doesn't step up, that's just a wasted draft pick, a wasted player. He has to get better. Carmen Bracillo has been known to get more value out of guys that are maybe underperforming, underwhelming. You look at what he did with Greg Van Roten, some of those guys, even Illuminor with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's a good developmental coach. He does manage to get a lot of value out of guys that really aren't that talented. I mean, I would argue that the Giants had way more talent on their offensive line than the Raiders did, and the Raiders were 13th, I think, in pass protection and, above average in run blocking. So, you ask yourself, was this a Bobby Johnson problem? God help the Commanders for hiring him after what he did to the Giants offensive line. Good for us. But I will say this, I have faith in Brasillo. I don't necessarily have faith in Evan Neal just yet. He's got to prove it to us. We just haven't seen the growth. I think that if I was the Giants, I'd be like, all right, you know what? Everything that you learned over the last 2 years, scrap it. We're going back to freaking day one. As far as I'm concerned, Evan Neal's a rookie this season, because he's regressed since being a rookie, and that's not where you want to be as a professional. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts right now on Evan Neal? Do you think he should be cross training? How much faith do you have in him? For me, I'm treating Evan Neal as if he's a rookie. Like, I expect nothing from him. If he overperforms and outplays my expectations, that's great news. But for now, he's got to prove it, because I'm tired of handing out jobs to players that haven't earned it.
We're pretty much in lockstep with the way that we feel about Evan Neal, except for the fact that I'm not going to treat him like he's a rookie. I'm treating him like he is a veteran entering his 4th season in the NFL, or 3rd season, whatever the hell it is. It's his 3rd season. Because you can't treat this guy like a rookie, because unfortunately I feel like that's what the Giants did the past few years with Daniel Jones. Like, for example, Daniel Jones had his rookie season. Then they fired the head coach, so he brought in new head coach, new offensive coordinator, so it was like rookie season 2. Then that coach got fired, so we're like, okay, but now restart with Brian Daboll, another new rookie season, essentially. And that's where you kind of give these guys longer leashes than what they deserve. So I'm not doing that with Evan Neal. I'm saying you are a veteran, and your job is on the line. If you do not prove to be a quality player now that you are a veteran player, you're done. So no leash, no redo, no start over. It's not like his career, the clock has been brought back to the 1 or to 12, midnight, whatever. This guy needs to take steps forward, not restart and retool. He needs to just be better. So what is my confidence level in him, you ask? Well, it's less than 50. I could say that pretty comfortably. We haven't seen enough from Evan Neal, and you know what? A lot of it really isn't the fact that he hasn't played well. A lot of it is the fact that he is so often injured. MCL injury as a rookie, another injury last year. The guy is really often injured, getting hurt quite a lot throughout his career in the NFL so far. We've heard some things here and there that maybe the work ethic isn't absolutely the best with Evan Neal. Maybe he just hasn't been able to adjust to right tackle at the NFL. Whatever excuse you want to give the guy, none of them are valid. There are no excuses for a top 7 draft pick entering his 3rd season. He has to play at a starter level. If he does not play at a quality level that's capable of starting 17 games, then he's not worth it. He is not a good player, and it's time to move on. So yeah, in terms of my confidence level, it's low. In terms of my expectations, they're high. I am not going into this year with low expectations for Evan Neal. I am setting a high bar for him to reach, and if he does not reach it, I am moving on. I am not going to continue to drag my feet here and expect this former top 10 pick to somehow, some way pan out later in his career. He's got to pan out now. He has to be a better player this season, or I'm done with him and I'm moving on from him. I'm finding his replacement next offseason, or I'm replacing him midway through this season with the versatility and the depth on the offensive line that we were just talking about with Jermaine Illuminor. So yeah, high expectations for Evan Neal. I think that we need to take a completely different approach to this and not hand him low expectations so that when he has a somewhat average or okay performance, we say that he cleared this bar. Set the bar high, because it's time for him as a top 10 pick to prove that he was worthy of that selection. And if he doesn't prove that, you move the frick on from him and you find a new right tackle for the future. That's how I feel about it. Now, the other question that you asked, should he be cross-training? Absolutely, because if he doesn't pan out a right tackle, what's your solution then? Who is your right tackle? Who's your guard? Move him around, see where he can play best, because so far he hasn't reached that potential. He has stunk. He has been a terrible offensive tackle. Maybe he plays well at guard, and that's the solution, and then you're done with it. You don't have to worry about him reaching this high bar of expectations or living up to the 7th overall pick. Just make him play wherever he plays best, and hopefully it all works out. So yeah, high expectations for Neal going into year 3. He just has to be a better football player. And then, like you said, he should be cross-training elsewhere. The Giants aren't cross-training him right now. They expect him to start at right tackle is what they said. That doesn't mean they're not going to. How many times this offseason have the Giants said they expect to do one thing and then they do the other? They expect Wink Martindale to remain the defensive coordinator, then he resigns and they move into a new direction. They expect Daniel Jones to be the starter, then they spent the whole offseason, which Daniel Jones just confirmed today, looking for his replacement. the expectations are not reality. That's just what it is. And so the Giants, yes, they expect Evan Neal to compete for this right tackle job, play there, start there, whatever. Not the reality. If he doesn't perform well during the summer, they will move him around to guard. And if he doesn't perform well there, he's just not going to be in the lineup. At least that's how it should be. You got to earn your job in the NFL. And for the New York Giants, no longer handing out jobs. Play, perform well, then you get your position. That's how it needs to be for Evan Neal. Hopefully, he rises to the occasion. But again, I'm setting high expectations and expecting him to play better. And if he doesn't, I am quickly moving on from him.
Yeah, for me, it's not because Evan Neal lacks athleticism, by the way. I think he's got plenty of size. He's got plenty of ability. For me, it's mental. I see, like, his confidence drop. I see him hanging his head. I see him slow to react. I see him slow to process. Like, these things to me are a lot of not understanding his assignment, not understanding where he needs to be, not understanding, his fundamentals, not leaning on his instincts a lot of times. He's trying to overdo it, overcompensate, and then he loses reps and it just compounds. And we saw that in week 1 last year, 8 pressures he allowed. He was probably the worst performance I've seen from an offensive lineman on the Giants in a long time. That's saying something. So like when you're looking at Evan Neal, for me, it's about building up his confidence day by day, leaning on his fundamentals, leaning on his work. And not just trying to overcompensate, not trying to overthink it, like react and respond. That's what Andrew Thomas has been doing the last 2 years, 3 years, reacting, responding, leaning on what he's done, the constant work he's put in to finally get to a point where he knows that his body is going to respond correctly to what the opposing pass rusher is going to do. Evan Neal's trying to overthink it, and then when you're overthinking it, you end up with delayed reactions. I think he's fine in terms of size. He has enough flexibility. I'm not really worried about those things. I think he's just struggling, mentally in a lot of ways. So what I meant by turning back the clock to a rookie is turn back the clock to when he was just entering the league and he had all this good tape and he was in a good spot. Forget everything that just happened in the last 2 years. It's wiped clean. You have a new offensive line coach. This team is trying to get better. They're giving him another shot to win this job in training camp. Wipe the slate clean, turn it over, and make some progress. That's the only way, in my opinion, you can think about it. If you're Evan Neal specifically, you have to just think about the last 2 years, forget about it. What's done is done, what's happened has happened, and we just try to move forward and be the best version that we can be. That's the only way that the Giants can get the maximum value out of him. Go ahead. I know you have a thought on that.
No, I think that's fair enough. From his perspective, that's probably how he should look at it. Put, your bad moments in the rear view and just look forward. That's what he needs to do. But for our perspective and for the coaching staff perspective, no. This is not a rookie. This is a guy that needs to perform better this year. Like, you can't give him those excuses like we've done with other players in the past. Again, namely Daniel Jones. And I'm not trying to just bring Daniel Jones into this to rag on him. I'm just using it as an example where when you give these guys these short leashes or you attribute their flaws to coaching or personnel around them, how do you hold them accountable if you always find an excuse like that? So for Evan Neal, he needs to do that. You are right about that, Alex. He does need to look at himself and say, hey, I'm a better player than what I've shown so far. Time to keep looking forward. No need to dwell on the past. But for the Giants, you have to keep in mind this player's history. He entered the NFL with high expectations. He hasn't even come close to reaching them just yet. You can't be like, well, Bobby Johnson held him back, or, oh, he needs another year with Carmen Bristolo. Year 2 with Carmen Bristolo is when he's really going to get it. No more of that. He needs to play good now. I'm not waiting for this guy anymore. If he doesn't play well this season, he's done so. I don't care if it's only been 3 years on a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option. I'm not wasting my time dragging my feet here with Evan Neal. Sorry, I'm just not going to do it. Maybe we've done it in the past with other players, but it's not happening this time around. It's a make or break year for Evan Neal. And I like how this episode was supposed to be a conversation on the versatility of the offensive line. It turned into a really great, heated, passionate conversation about Evan Neal and the expectations for him this season. So I'm happy that I got to air all this out because I've been thinking about this recently. Like, Evan Neal going into this season, I've heard a lot of, Carmen Bristolo, he's going to fix him. He's going to make him play better. They're going to move him to guard. Everything's going to be fixed. What if it's not fixed? I'm not giving him another year. I'm not saying year 2 with Bristol. I'm not saying, his 3rd year with Dable. No, don't give me any of that crap. If Evan Neal doesn't play well this year, dunzo. Over it. I don't want to see it anymore. He's either playing well this year, especially after he got personal with Giants fans last season. I mean, even the character fit. You want to bring that into the conversation. Be better. Just be better on the field. Be better off the field. Just be better. I'm not having it with Evan Neal anymore. Put up or shut up year. I feel the same way about a few other Giants players. Won't rope them into this mess too much. But yeah, for Evan Neal, that's how I'm feeling. It's different with John Michael Schmitz, who we could talk about next. I think that's a good way to segue into a kind of different topic on the offensive line. John Michael Schmitz has only had 1 season in the NFL, and it was one plagued with injuries, yes, and bad coaching, all that stuff. Evan Neal's had 2 years to prove it. At least prove something He hasn't proved anything going into year 3. He's got this new coach. This is the one opportunity for him to turn things around. He's got to do it now. If he doesn't, I'm totally over it. But yeah, that's not to say that there isn't talent on this offensive line, though. Like we've said, Runyon, Illuminor, versatile talents, like them both. John Michael Schmitz as well. I am hoping that he does take that step forward like we're expecting him to this year.
Yeah, when it comes to JMS, totally different scenario. This is what I actually look at JMS. I think I give him more of the ability to get better than I did Evan Neal last year. Why? Because he had a different guard playing again alongside him every single freaking week last year, whether it was Azudu, whether it was Justin Pugh off the couch, or Marcus McKethin or Bredesen. Every week he had a different freaking player next to him. How do you develop like that? How do you take any steps forward when you have no consistency around you, let alone fighting off some injury, and having one of the worst coaches we've seen, position coaches? It's and then the team losing it against good pass rushers in the NFC East. It was a perfect storm for JMS. Like, no wonder he struggled. I think he's going to look significantly better this year. Why? Because that guy has a good work ethic. That guy, he knows what he has to do. He knows he has to get better. He's a smart player. Now it's about just getting his feet under him. Now he has a full year of experience. I'm willing to bet that John Michael Schmitz has a pretty solid year in this upcoming season. As long as the guys around him stay relatively healthy, he's going to be a decent player for us. And I think I'll stand by that take. I project that he will be a pretty good player. Much different than Evan Neal, who is out there on an island. He has to survive on his own. JMS has to rely a little bit on the guys around him. How do you possibly do any combo blocks when you don't know the guy's name next to you because he just got plucked up off the street yesterday? You know what I mean? Like, you just can't do it. It's not possible. How do you communicate to your fellow offensive linemen when you don't know their names? They don't even know the snap count. You can't do a silent count. It's impossible, especially when your quarterback position is under such disarray as well. So I think JMS, if things are just at least relatively consistent and disciplined, we're going to see a much better version of him. And I think that's a pretty fair take by most accounts. So, looking at this offensive line, I do think it will be better. Can't guarantee it will be, but I think it will be, just based on the new talent, the new faces, the new coaches. Another receiver should take a lot more pressure off of the offensive line, just in terms of you can't blitz extra guys all the time. When you have neighbors back there, throw that thing up and let him go after it. When you have speed like Slayton and Hyatt on the edge, you just can't utilize those extra blitzers all the time. There's going to be guys open underneath. The Giants will create outlets for Daniel Jones to utilize. Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson. We'll see what happens with Darren Waller. Juan Dale is going to be a massive asset in this offense. I see a lot of development here in terms of just taking big steps forward in the trenches, but it's going to rely a lot on these guys staying healthy, and that's been the most important factor for the Giants, is staying healthy, and they just haven't been able to do that. So that's where I turn my attention. I know another little side OTA note: Jerome Henderson said that Cordell Flott would be the starting CB2 if today was the first day of the regular season. Again, another expectation that we may not be able to put too much stock into. Nick McLeod could win that job, but for now, they have a lot of faith in Cordell Flott to be that CB2. I was kind of talking about this a couple weeks ago. I think this makes a lot of sense. They need some of these guys to pan out. They need some guys to graduate to starting jobs. And, when it comes to Cordell Flott, I do think he has the tangible traits. He's a good player. They just need him to get better. He's 22 years old. He's still very young. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you there. I think that there's a lot of potential with Cordell Flott, and I like what the Giants have here in terms of a little bit of a position battle at the cornerback spot. And while Flott is CB2 right now, I do think that's open to changing. We haven't seen a ton of Cordell Flott playing on the outside. His slender frame has given me a little bit of cause for concern throughout the first couple seasons of his career, but he's a good player and he's flashed potential for sure. And if that's what Jerome Henderson is feeling, if that's who he thinks fits well in this defense and is going to be the best option for them at outside cornerback, man, I trust in Jerome Henderson. He is well respected. He has done some great work with defensive backs throughout the entirety of his career, even before he was with the Giants, when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. Guy's a smart defensive mind, especially in the secondary. So yeah, I'm rocking with it. If he's liking Cordell Flott for the spot, man, so am I. And I'm hopeful that he rises up to the occasion and plays well. Now, there is a little bit of cause for concern there, though, because you are talking about two relatively inexperienced guys manning the cornerback spots, which is similar to what we had to start the year last season. Deontay Banks obviously being one of the two starters. He's only entering year 2, and then you have Cordell Flott entering year 3, another relatively inexperienced player because throughout the first 2 seasons of his career, he hasn't seen a ton of playing time anyway, mostly in the slot. So definitely a boom or bust approach here. But one other thing that I will mention, kind of another off-topic, on-topic OTA talking point, Darren Waller isn't there right now. He's not showing up at OTAs. We are very close to June 1st. The Giants don't have to wait much longer for Darren Waller. If he retires next week, which is what I think is going to happen, post June 1st, they free up even more cap space. They can absolutely go out there and acquire a new cornerback if they want to get some more veteran experience in that position to be a starter for 17 games this year. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Alex, how are you thinking about that? Just kind of, we're almost here post June 1st. I don't know if you know the numbers offhand, if you want to pull them up here with Darren Waller, but I know that if he retires now versus if he retires in a week and a half, or at least makes it official in a week and a half, the Giants can designate it post June 1st, because it will be, and they'll free up extra cap space and definitely have a little bit of spending power going into the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, if the Giants cut Waller right now, they'd save $6.7 million. If they cut him post June 1st, it'd be $11.6 million. The problem with that is that post June 1st just means you push the dead money into 2025. So you still have to pay it. It just gets pushed a little bit longer into the future. And when it comes to Waller, they're doing right by him. He's going through a divorce. Obviously, that's really, really difficult. It's personal stuff. They're like, dude, take as much time as you need. We get it. It's just a couple $1 million at the end of the day. They end up saving like 6.7 mil, but the impact that he will have, and that's what I'll argue, like, is the impact that Waller will have, will it be worth $6.7 million? You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the logic I would use to determine what exactly he's kind of going, what's kind of going on with him right now in terms of if he stays, he might be worth $6.7 million, right? Like his impact, his offensive impact, you have him with Theo. That allows you to develop Theo Johnson behind the scenes. What can you do with 6.7 mil? Maybe you go and get a cornerback. You don't really need anything else. You draft a couple guys. So, Anthony, would you say that Darren Waller's value is equivalent to $6.7 million that you'd save if you keep him? Because I'd say maybe. I'd say probably it's worth that. But again, what are the Giants going to do with the money anyway? They're going to end up letting him go most likely next offseason. So I don't think the dead money's that much, but it does mean that they keep they pick up that, was it 3 years, $51 million? I don't exactly know. I can look up right now his contract. So let's say this, 2024, he has a $14 million cap hit. They would say it's $6.7 million, but next year he has a $15.5 million cap hit. If they cut him, they can save $10.5 million. So they can get out of the contract pretty easily. He has an out in his deal, but it's really not that big of a deal. They can still move on next year if they want to, and still save a lot of money. It's 10.5 mil. Do you think his value is equivalent to $6.7 million? That's really the question we have to be asking ourselves right now.
Yeah, and we've had that conversation before, and when you've asked me that before on previous episodes on the show, I've said that he is worth that value. He does a lot for this offense. He pulls defenders to the middle of the field, creating more one-on-one opportunities for Hyatt on the outside. For now, Malik Neighbors, we haven't had this conversation since Malik Neighbors was thrown into the mix. I feel like a lot of Giants fans, after Malik Neighbors got signed, got drafted, we're just kind of like, well, now you move on from Darren Waller even easier because he's no longer your number one receiving threat. But think about the value that Waller provides to your offense as a number 2 or 3 receiving threat. If he's not asked to be the man every single play in and out as the number 1 primary receiving threat, right? I mean, he's probably not going to get injured as often if he's not being the number 1 guy. And then maybe he's playing on the field a little bit more and opening up more opportunities for your number 1 receiver in Malik Neighbors. And it's great to have a solid number 2 threat. So yeah, I think that he is worth that $6.7 million. Giants fans downplay the way that he played last year because he didn't play much. He still put up over 500 receiving yards and a touchdown, and a lot of those were first downs. Like, he did play well when he was on the field, and so you're not paying some huge premium. The $6.7 million, you're paying for half of a season of Darren Waller probably, but you're getting some good play in that half of a season. So yeah, I think that he is worth it, but ultimately, if I had to predict what's going to happen here, it sounds like he's probably going to end up retiring and the Giants are moving on from him. But if he chooses not to retire, the Giants should not cut him, in my opinion. They should just ride it out one more year and make a decision on Darren Waller's future next offseason. And, assuming because of the way that he's felt this offseason, he's probably going to retire next offseason anyway. So just stick it out for one more year if he does choose to play this upcoming season. I think that would be the right move. So to answer your question fully, yeah, I do think that he's worth that price tag in comparison to what they would get from cutting him.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is kind of the situation. I don't think the Giants are going to cut him. I think they're going to let him make that decision. One way or another, you keep him, you don't get 6.7 mil. He's probably worth that in terms of offensive production. Opens up a whole nother element to your offense. What type of Darren Waller are you going to get, though? You know what I mean? Like, what type of player are you going to get? Has he been doing the offseason work? He's going through something really personal. Is he ready for NFL football? Is he ready for the grueling season? Can he stay focused? Those are all questions that you have to ask in reality, but end of the day, the Giants are doing right by him, giving as much time as he needs, and I respect them for that. I think that's a good gesture, and it goes a long way. Like, other players will think about that. Well, if something happens to me, how will the Giants treat me? Will they just cut me and then forget about me, or will they give me the time to figure out my stuff? And I think the Giants are doing right by that, and they're showing to the rest of the league that anyone that comes here will be treated like family. And I think that that's a really good thing after all the crap that happened this offseason with Wink Martindale, the coaching staff, the turnover, replacing Daniel Jones and him basically confirming it, or trying to replace him and him basically confirming it today. At least they're doing some things to give a little bit, more positivity back to the players, and give them that space. So, I think that kind of wraps up most of our OTA takeaways. I know some people thought Tommy DeVito looked the best today. I know Daniel Jones wasn't actually operating in a team setting. He was more so just like kind of standing in the pocket and slinging the rock, but apparently DeVito looked really good. We'll see what happens, man. I don't think Tommy DeVito's winning the starting job, but hey, like, I'll tell you this, why can't he beat Drew Lock for the backup job? That's the bigger question for me. Why can't he beat, I don't think he's beating Daniel Jones, but why can't he beat Drew Lock?
How many times have I been saying that to you all offseason, Alex? I've been saying, oh my God, I've been making this argument all offseason. Give DeVito a chance, man. Give him a chance. Nah, give him a chance as the starter. F it. DeVito, don't sleep on the kid. Do not sleep on the kid, man.
I would be blown away if he won that starting job, but I definitely don't see a reason why he can't compete for the backup job. That's for sure. But again, like, if Daniel Jones is going to not play well, the injury clause, like, you might as well throw somebody else in there if worst comes to worst. I know a lot of people want to see DJ, and we will see him. Don't worry. I think we're pretty locked into that. But if he goes down, like, who's next up in line? Let the best man win. Just what we're saying about Evan Neal, just what we're saying about any other player on this team. Tommy DeVito has an opportunity to beat Drew Lock. Drew Lock's not a great player. Like, he is very much a beatable player when it comes to that, and he didn't look good today apparently. So again, day one of like media visibility and OTAs. There's a long offseason to go. A lot can change. But let the best man win at every single position. That's kind of where I'm at for the Giants right now.
100% agree with you, and I'll give my few points that I have to make on this situation before we close this out. With Tommy DeVito, first of all, he looked better today than he did last season. Whatever Connor Hughes saying that he looked like the best quarterback between the two that actually competed. Listen, Tommy DeVito, he spoke recently to the media, and he mentioned how him and Brian Daboll sat down at the end of the last season, went over all the stuff that he needs to work on, all of the ways that he can improve, and he said that he attacked this offseason trying his best to work on every facet of his game and improve. And I believe him. Tommy DeVito is hungry. He wants to continue with that success that he found last year. And so if he made all that progress and he really did develop and continue to work on the things that he needed to work on, who's to say that he won't be a much better player this year? That's my whole thing with Tommy DeVito is there was a lot of conversation last year about, oh, he can be a decent backup. He won a few games. His passer rating was super low. He's not going to be any good. Maybe he won't even make the roster this season. Why would he not make the roster? He's a capable quarterback that won games as an undrafted rookie after being thrown into the lineup super unexpectedly. All those factors considered, and he won football games and made some decent throws as an undrafted rookie. If he was a third-round pick, which is exactly what he said last week, and which I've said so many times on the show, if he was a third-round pick and he went in there, put together that 3-game winning streak, Alex, I mean, we're talking about a guy that has as many primetime wins in his career as Daniel Jones. He's put up some good numbers. He's played some good football at a regular season level. Who is to say that Tommy DeVito can't continue to develop? He was just a rookie. He had his growing pains, sure, but he's a young guy who flashed potential. If he was a first, second, or third round pick, that flash of potential would have been enough for Giants fans to get behind him and say that he's the future of the franchise. But he did it as a backup, and he did it as an undrafted rookie. Give him more time to grow. He wasn't even with the Giants for all of OTAs last year. He didn't go through the whole process, learn the playbook from start to finish. He was joined in very late in the process. Now that he's got the full process going into year 2 with some regular season wins under his belt, let Tommy DeVito develop. Let's see what he's got. We haven't seen all of Tommy DeVito just yet. I'm very passionate on this topic. Obviously, there's a whole lot of bias involved with it, but I'm a big Tommy DeVito believer. And the last point that I'll make, Alex, that you made in a roundabout way is, why would he not be on this roster? Why would he not be able to compete at least for the backup job with Daniel Jones having the injury history that he does have and the injury clause in his contract? The Giants will be fools if they do not enter the season with 3 quarterbacks on their roster. They need a QB3. So at the very least, whether it's Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito, they need to have a third quarterback. Daniel Jones is going to be their QB1. He's going to be their starter. If he gets injured at any point, though, real conversation. Should they start Drew Lock? Should they start Tommy DeVito? But both of those guys should absolutely 100% be on the roster. I know a lot of teams don't carry three quarterbacks. The Giants need to. With Daniel Jones' career history, with injuries, considering he's coming off of the torn ACL, the stinger in his neck last year, considering the fact that he has that injury clause, so the Giants may make the decision to bench him as a healthy scratch at some point during the season. Three quarterbacks on the roster. They have to do it. Tommy DeVito, it shouldn't even be a question. We've heard conversations, will he make the roster? He should be a lock to make this roster for what he did at the stretch of last season as an undrafted rookie, and for the fact that the Giants need depth at quarterback this year. Very passionate on this topic. Again, I know, a whole lot of bias in here. Love my paisano, but listen, Tommy DeVito flashed that potential. He was an undrafted rookie. Growing pains were going to be inevitable for him. But who's to say that he doesn't have the potential to develop into a whole lot more in his NFL career? Maybe he doesn't become a starter, but he should absolutely be a backup on this football team. Yes, Tommy DeVito should be one of the Giants' two backup quarterbacks. And man, if he does get an opportunity to play in the regular season, I hope we get more of that Linsanity run, and I hope it becomes the norm for Tommy DeVito and that we see him forever. I'm really rooting for the kid. I root for every Giants player, but you guys know, a little bit of extra bias and passion for my boy Tommy DeVito. But I think that pretty much wraps this up, unless you have any remarks back to me on my Tommy DeVito rant there. Alex, any closing
Nothing
thoughts
about
for
DeVito.
you on OTAs?
Closing thoughts. One closing thought. The Giants just made one of the best decisions that they could have made, and the fact that they hadn't made this decision years ago, you know exactly what I'm about to say, finally getting Andre Patterson involved with the pass rushers. God help me, the Giants have done the dumbest thing on earth and stopped him, one of the best defensive line coaches that helped to develop Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin, from helping Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. They finally said, well, you know, this kind of makes sense. The interior defensive line and the exterior should be working in unison. They should know how to play alongside each other. Under Wink Martindale's tutelage and the Wilkins bros, they were completely on different pages. And that's what Kayvon Thibodeau just said today. They were on different pages. They were not in symmetry. They were not in sync. But now they're working as a unit. They're working as one. And he's seeing the scheme and our hard work are now starting to blend, and you're starting to see that the reward of that they know what each other are doing. They know how to play off one another. Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, guys, is going to be freaking fun to watch, my friends. Oh, my goodness. You know, Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence, going to be fun to watch, if, you know, trying to maximize those matchups and advantages. This defense is about to get a lot different because they're finally letting their best coaches do freaking coaching. Like, let them coach the players that need it the most. The outside linebackers, Kayvon Thibodeau. Even Brian Burns said today, one of the things I loved, having a veteran presence helped him exponentially in Carolina. Hassan Reddick changed his career path, he said. Having Brian Burns with Kayvon Thibodeau, and they've been hanging out a lot and building out a chemistry, and Kayvon Thibodeau's already said it's helped me a ton. So I'm expecting big things from this defensive line. I think they could be one of the best in football. They have that much talent. Now it's just about putting on the football field and doing it. So I'm excited. This is going to be really fun. I think Andre Patterson is one of the best coaches in the league, one of the best position coaches. I'm ecstatic that they finally realized they can put more on his plate and let him work.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I'm very happy about this news. I think that getting arguably the Giants' best assistant coach and allowing him to start to coach up and develop some of these other players rather than just Dexter Lawrence, who he's done a tremendous job with. I mean, Dexter Lawrence pre-Andre Patterson, post-Andre Patterson, two different players. Absolutely huge step in his development once Andre Patterson started coaching him. Who's to say that can't happen for Kayvon Thibodeau as well? And even Brian Burns, who, great player, only 26 years old, still scratching the surface. Still more to unlock for Brian Burns, especially now that he's playing with some decent talent around him rather than the poverty franchise that he was just previously on in the Carolina Panthers. So I think it's going to be really exciting seeing Andre Patterson work with these guys. I'm hoping that it leads to steps forward from all of the defensive linemen and pass rushers on the New York Giants. I think that Wink Martindale holding the coop that he had last year and, you know, containing the outside linebackers in the Wilkins brothers box was stupid, was egregious, and now I'm just really happy and excited for Andre Patterson to have a larger role here because he, by all accounts, is just an excellent coach. He's been credited with the development of many players. Danielle Hunter during the time in Minnesota. That's another one just to throw out there for you. So exciting stuff. We actually had a lot to talk about today. I'm very happy about that. We talked for a long while, longer than we have been in previous episodes. OTAs are finally giving us some Giants news to react to, but this is just the start of it, my friends. Stay tuned to Fireside Giants because we're going to be hitting you with Giants content, updates, news, rumors, reports, everything right here on Fireside Giants every single day throughout the offseason and ramping up into the regular season. So Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.